This is E&P Reports, a vodcast from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcast, digital, and all forms of news publishing.
Greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. As always, if you're listening to us on a podcast platform, please follow us. Watching us on YouTube, there is a subscribe button below, a bell to the right. Ring that puppy and you'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of this weekly podcast series that serves the news media ecosystem, E&P Reports. Now, let me give you some background. In the 1980s, after 10 years as a radio talent and programming manager, I jumped behind the microphone and went into sales, selling AM radio, which at the time was being disrupted by FM radio. And I was knocking on doors. I had no list, cold calling in a small market community that all the manufacturing jobs had moved offshore. So it was economically challenged. Now, luckily, I was being mentored by an owner who took me under his wing and taught me concepts that we call today integrity selling and solution-based selling. But not only that, he gave me access to sales training content from an emerging industry guru named Chris Lytle. Now, those techniques of Chris's helped me succeed into sales management, and I actually incorporated those into my sales training and revenue generation programs that helped generate over $100 million for news publishers worldwide when I was a consultant. And also, we use those same techniques today in the transformation of E&P Magazine. Now, the reason for this unusual one-on-one preamble to the show is an apology. It's kind of an apology for what may seem to be my overly obsequious, hero-worshiping, borderlining on a sycophantic behavior that has me acting like a 1950s giddy schoolgirl watching Elvis Presley hit the stage when I got Chris into the recording session. My apologies. Now, with that being said, stick around because after this commercial message, you and I will go one-on-one together with the iconic media sales expert, Chris Lytle, founder and CEO of Instant Sales Training, author of the bestsellers, The Accidental Salesperson and The Accidental Sales Manager. He's trained thousands of sellers worldwide and has been described as, quote, someone who can provide more usable information per minute than anyone else in the business. Stick around.
This episode of E&P Reports is exclusively sponsored by Blocks Digital, formerly Town News. Even though the name has changed, their commitment to the media industry is as strong as ever. Blocks Digital is now even better positioned to deliver integrated solutions like content management, audience development, advertising revenue, video management, and more. Join the over 2,000 news publishers worldwide that power their ongoing digital transformation with Blocks Digital, serving over 141 million monthly users who view over 6.5 billion pages of content each year. You can trust Blocks Digital to empower you, to connect you at scale with the community you need to reach. Blocks Digital, formerly Town News, now reimagined to help meet the news publishing challenges of tomorrow and beyond. Learn more at blocksdigital.com.
Okay, Chris, the world has changed a lot since you entered the industry, right? I mean, you started selling in the 70s, correct?
Correct.
With radio, was that out of the box?
Started with radio, yes. WCLT in Newark, Ohio.
How did you get the job? You came out of college and just said, hire me? What was it all
No,
like?
I was a political science major. I interned in Congress when that was a safe job. And I came back to my hometown radio station and said, I want to be a newsman. And they said, well, we need a salesman. And I said, well, I have a political science degree. And they said, well, that won't slow you down. You can read and write and research, can't you? I said, yeah, sure. And I thought I'd work my way into news, but the news director was driving a 7-year-old Chevy Vega and covering the city council meetings till 1 a.m. and complaining all the time about how tough it was. And I said, maybe sales. I mean, the sales manager had a Cadillac, and I said, this might be for me.
I was having a lengthy conversation with a senior manager of a big radio group. I don't want to say which one or how, because we were joking about how the world has shifted and why there's so much trouble selling media today. This was his words, is because everybody's selling product. They're not selling audience.
Yeah,
What do you think of that? I mean, when you hear words like that in today's world.
Well, what I hear is it's I call it level one selling. And if you see the chart in the Accidental Salesperson, I'm in there to talk about my rates, my ratings, and my format. And I'm not talking advertising with you. I'm talking about my numbers. I'm talking about me. So it's all about me instead of what are you trying to accomplish? Who's your biggest competitor? What what are the issues that you need to resolve? And so it's being more consultative, of course. But one of my first exposures to training in 1973 was J. Douglas Edwards and the 13 methods for closing the sale, and it was just pound people. But here's one thing. I've never heard a CEO at a radio group say, "Did we get results for these customers?"
Nothing's really changed, has it, Chris? I mean, this is the stuff good sellers I've seen for decades understood is you're there in front of the advertiser to find out what makes them unique, got the unique selling proposition, and market it to your audience, correct?
Goes all the way back to Rosser Reeves, who invented the unique selling proposition.
Of course.
The milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
Who was the one that said sells the sizzle, not the steak? I could go on and on. There's so many old expressions. Let's then dive into the changes. In today's world, radio, according to the latest and greatest data from Burrell, is the leading legacy media. Between outdoor is doing pretty well too, but between radio and television and newspapers, the three big legacy brands and markets, radio's still outselling the other two. When I asked Jim Brown, the president of Burrell Associates, on this program a few weeks ago, why that was the fact, he said, it's the sellers. They're the better sales.
Yeah, I think that radio people, especially the people who have longevity, they've been in the market for a while, they've got a good list, and they'll do very well because they've got relationships, they've got reputation, and they can really leverage that.
I find they also know how to beat the bushes. See, here's the big challenge today we're seeing also in our reporting is the top categories you have to go after today in order to win in local advertising sales are small businesses. The big dogs are all buying around legacy media now, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
They're finding programmatic and OTT options, and they're buying off their own desk. They don't have to go through the media company to buy OTT or electronic outdoor, or whatever. But the small businesses, you and I both know, are the hardest to get into, the hardest to sell, and sometimes the hardest to manage. Radio was always good at that. At least in my background, we knew how to, because the paper had most of their business was transactional with agencies, television, mostly regional agencies, right? What is it that you see in a good seller in radio that makes them able to deal with all that rejection and all that, trying to get into that plumber or that heating and air conditioning guy or that chiropractor or that cosmetic dentist?
I read a long time ago that, a happy customer can, do wonders. And it sparks your enthusiasm. Just one good, happy customer story beats 5 or 6 rejections. And so you got to hang out with people who are getting some results from you, and then take that belief with you into that place that's a little more difficult, and not give up too early. That's what happens to most people. They make a call or two and don't have anything to come back with.
I remember seeing at an NAB or a radio only convention, I think it was years ago, Alan Simberg. Does that ring a bell?
Absolutely.
An old guy who was standing on the stage, and all he said was, if you don't believe in your product or service, you're not that good of an actor, right? If they can feel it in your, you don't even have to say it. So you're suggesting that if a sales rep now is feeling rejection or not feeling the energy of their audience, that you should hang around your customers more that are doing well with you and feed off that energy?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember one of the best sessions that I was ever a part of is Golden West Radio up in Canada. They're in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and they brought me up to do 3 hours. And the afternoon session was I was the MC of a session with 5 or 6 of their clients who talked about how they had used the radio station to build their businesses. So there was a car dealer and a butcher. And he said, until we started advertising, we didn't have any business. And so they were building belief. And that's really the one thing that managers have the power to do is build belief in what you're selling.
So let's talk about
we spend too much time talking about how to close and questions to ask, but can we help people?
My experience, and again, I'm almost like you now, because I'm not walking into media companies like I used to. I mean, years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, when I was back in the consulting business, I would visit 3 media companies a week, locally, and I'm talking real small towns. I mean, I've been to Wasilla, Alaska, in the winter. That if the ad director didn't have the right qualities, the whole sales team fell apart. The coach, the chief, that hasn't changed either, has it, Chris?
No, and I call it the sales management trap in my book, The Accidental Sales Manager,
exactly.
Where you get promoted to sales management, but you were out there selling up a storm, and then bam, somebody says, "Hey, we want you to be the manager," and you say, "Sorry." You say, "Oh, that'd be great," and then they say, "Well, but you need to keep your list until you can develop some people to take over for you." And so now you got a full-time job and another full-time job, and you get trapped. And what I see so often right now is that the market manager is the sales manager and the top biller, and so that they're not hiring and developing the people who are going to develop their top line revenues. And so it's a mess in some of these markets.
You and I both know Jim Doyle pretty well. He wrote,
Sure.
We had him on the show just a couple of months ago because of his latest book, Selling with a Servant Heart, which I got autographed, by the way. I want you to know that. But anyway, Selling with a Servant Heart basically reminds me of that old expression. In my book, I quoted Zig Ziglar, who said, "They don't care what you know till they know that you care." And then I found out that he stole that from Teddy Roosevelt. That's one quality. You agree? You already said it, right? I mean, you got to be customer focused, right? Care about their results. But are there any other qualities off the top of your head, if you wanted to find someone that could handle the rejection, it had to have the tenacity, the creativity to manage an account list of local advertisers? What do you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I follow a guy named Anthony Iannarino. He talks about caring being the superpower in selling. But the other thing is, instead of just going in and trying to get some business, go in there and as Jim Doyle calls it, serve them with some information that you have that they may not have. Because Anthony calls it a briefing. We used to do, when I was doing seminars all the time, I did seminars for advertisers and told them, here's the 5 local advertising mistakes to avoid. Here are the elements that need to be in your commercial. Here's how to be more creative, use stories instead of just cliches, and brief people on how to be better advertisers, because an educated customer buys more. And then you come off as helpful, caring, intelligent. And so, one of the great things I ever said to the guy, the car dealer who said, "Sit down and pitch me." I said, "I don't know if you should be on our station or not."
I did the same thing once, and I stole it from you. You're the one that said, the next time a guy says, "What do you got?" I think you said this on the stage. You said, "Nothing. Tell him until I learn more about you. I want to see if we're a good match."
Yeah.
I never forgot that. That was back in the 80s. I saw you on the stage. reminding me to not fall into that trap. Because what did you say? And I know I'm misquoting you, sir.
Well, the story was, it was a cattle call,
Yes.
and this new Dodge general manager, they'd fired the other guy, and this new guy had come in from Milwaukee. I was in Madison, and I got the memo on the memo, the nail. I got the message that said, "You'll have 20 minutes to pitch Mr. Voss at 1:20 on Friday." Or it's Thursday, and cancel all commercials until then. And I thought, wow, if I'm the 1:20, there's a 1, there's a 11:40, there's a 11:20, there's an 11. I'm going to be the 13th rep he sees. And so they've all been in pitching their station. I've got to be different. So I said, I don't know if you should be on our station or not. And I said, I want to be in a position to give you an intelligent presentation based on what you're trying to do. And I was calling on Steve last week, and he's gone. And I know your goals are bigger than Steve's, and I want to be in a position to make an intelligent presentation. And I gestured to the credenza behind him. I said, have you had any intelligent presentations so far today, sir? He said, this has been the most boring day of my life. I said, well, Mr. Voss, he said, call me Bob. I said, Bob, what are you trying to do here? And we spent an hour and a half of that. It was an hour and a half meeting instead of 20 minutes. And when I walked out, there were 5 reps waiting for their 20-minute meeting. And I said, good luck, everyone.
I stole that from you and landed a $100,000 account when I flew into New York City for a 30-minute presentation to a major media group. And he said, what do you got? And the whole board, and I said, nothing. I had to force myself to do this. I had a PowerPoint ready, I said, nothing. I want to know if we're a good match. God forbid we do business together. And he said, hire him, and walked out of the room. He made me stay an extra night and let me go buy some clothes. Chris, I could talk to you for hours, but we're running out of time. I'm going to let you now promote yourself. You're still got amazing training at your website, and you're updating it weekly, which I'm very impressed with. What is the web address if anyone wants to check out your stuff?
My website is instantsalestraining.com. And I post, there's a lot of video content that's longer, but I post a 3 to 7 minute knowledge bite every week. It's video, and there's usually an audio, and then discussion questions for a sales manager. And the discussion questions, you can send it to people on their phones. They can listen to it in the field, and then you can discuss it and and have they applied this idea in a sales meeting and really have like an honors class in sales instead of a lecture course. So
I'd like to urge all the sales managers that are listening today to maybe check it out, because that can be fodder for one segment can be fodder for a good sales meeting. And the price is very, very reasonable. I'm not going to shout it out because this recording could be listened to 3 years from now where you've tripled your rates, but you even have a discount code there. So I know I'm plugging you.
Thank you.
You didn't pay for this advertising, and I'm not a communist. I like getting paid, but I have so much respect for you, sir. This was something I wanted to share with our audience. Thank you, Chris Lytle, founder and CEO of Instant Sales Training. Check out instantSalesTraining.com. You stay well, sir, and keep fighting the fight and motivating those teams.
Thank you, Mike. My privilege.